Thank you, everyone, for coming out, for braving the rain, braving everything that you did to be here, because you are in the presence of some heavy hitters. It is my pleasure to be on stage in person, first in-person event in a very long time, but well-deserved, because we've got some fantastic advertising and marketing talent, public relations talent here. So without further ado, I will introduce our panelists in no specific order. Juan Cano, he is brand manager at We Believers. Born in Medellin, Colombia, raised here in New York, Juan always dreamed of being an ad man. He graduated from Baruch in 2007, began working at some of the biggest firms here in New York City, Kaplan Thaler, Young and Rubicam, the Vidal Partnership, working on campaigns for notable brands, including Colgate, Nivea, Remy Martin Global, TD Bank, Optimum, Coors Light, all kinds of things you find in your pantry. He joined the independent creative agency We Believers in 2016 and has since led impactful campaigns for Charter Communications Spectrum, Burger King, Bacardi, and numerous others. Welcome, Juan. Thank you for sharing your experience. In addition, we have Alexis Nowicki. Alexis is a publicist at Astra House. It's an indie book publisher specializing in international literature and works in translation. Prior to that position, she worked as an account supervisor at a boutique PR agency called RVD Communications, where she handled PR for clients such as Wash Bar, Seattle Chocolate Company, and Small Door Vet. Before that, she spent 4 years at the publishing house Farrar Straus Giroux, publicizing their fiction, nonfiction, and poetry titles. Welcome, Alexis.
Thank you.
And then here, to my immediate left, Vanessa Santana is an associate brand manager at Unilever, specifically on the Dove account. The Dove brand. She's client side, not agency. Vanessa is a purpose-driven marketer, culture enthusiast, and inclusion advocate. She currently manages global product innovation for Dove's hair care business. Prior to joining Unilever, she worked at General Mills, NBC Universal, and Nielsen. She's a proud alum of Baruch College as well, here in New York, where she got her BA in corporate communications and journalism. She was a dual sport athlete, double NCAA athlete, and co-hosted a radio show. You'll have to tell us about that. When she's not marketing big brands or speaking at events, she enjoys traveling, podcasting, and quality time with her family, some of whom are here in the room. So welcome, round of applause for all of our panelists. So I just read everyone's bio, but I usually like to start with your career journey in your own words. So we'll start with Alexis, right? Tell us a little bit about your current role and sort of how you got into the position that you're in.
Yeah, so I work at Astra House, which is an indie book publisher. I'm a publicist, which means that I communicate with the media to get media placements, reviews, interviews. I schedule book events for authors. I did not know book publishing was a thing until I got into the industry, basically. I majored in English in college, and my department did not teach us anything about how to get a job. I think, I thought that I would be a teacher or a writer, I don't know, a journalist. I did the college newspaper, so. But then I was working at my local movie theater, and someone came in and saw me reading a book in between movie sets and was like, hey, have you heard of the Columbia Publishing course? And I said no. And they told me that they had a friend who moved to New York to work in book publishing and took this 6-week course and learned everything they needed to know and then moved to New York. So I was like, that sounds cool. I'd love to go to New York. I did it. I got in. I did it. And then I got a job at FSG, which is a different book publisher that's been around for 75 years and also does fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, like you said. And then I worked there for 4 years, and that's where I am now. And I'm a publicist at this one, too.
Cool. We'll come back to your going back and forth when we talk about challenges in some of these roles.
Totally.
How about you, Juan?
So I graduated in 2007 from Baruch College. That's why we
Shout out to Baruch.
shout out to Baruch. Any Baruch students or
Any
CUNY?
Baruch people?
There we
yes.
go. All right. These are my
Shout out
people.
to CUNY. Shout
You
out
got
to
it right
Baruch.
home.
But let me skip from 2007 to 2016. I worked at different agencies, and we all know there was a new great president, there was a recession, this, that, the other. So I was hopping around, similar to you. When you start off, agency jobs pay 30 to 40K. I needed more, and you hop around a lot. So I did that from digital agencies. Young and Rubicam, working on Colgate, was the most traditional kind of Mad Men experience I had. And it was, they're all great learning experiences, but I speak Spanish and I wasn't using that. So not intellectually stimulated enough at work, and I wasn't connecting to my culture. So I'm sure we'll get to code switching, but I was tired of code switching. I was tired of having to dress a certain way, talk a certain way in the office, and then outside, my interests are completely different. You know, toothpaste is great, but there's other more interesting things in the world. So 2016, I finally, I'm walking out of Baruch, I'd just taken a final, and I run into 3 agency guys that I had worked with previously at the Vidal Partnership. The Vidal Partnership was the largest Hispanic advertising agency in New York, might have been in the United States for a while. And I had worked with them. They had all dispersed, gone on to different things, and they were having a very good time. They had some drinks, and they had just launched their own agency. They run into me and kind of drunkenly tell me, "We need you. We're going to be looking for you." And 6 months later, they said, we don't hire employees. We want people to have their own businesses. So they helped me set up my own LLC. I called it Cano Contento. Contento means content. So I was just looking for a place to put all my skills together: digital marketing, digital advertising, speak Spanish, cultural insights. And they created this small little place where we were able to do that. In 2014, they launched it at the end of 2014. 2016, I was like the 7th, 8th hire. This year at Cannes, we were the creative agency of the year. So I'm skipping a lot of stuff, but basically that's the story of.
Yeah, he deserves a clap for that.
Yeah.
Definitely worth applauding.
Committing to wanting to be happy, committing to wanting to be content, and not just. I could have stayed at Y&R and Colgate and kept churning out commercial after commercial of the dentist just smiling, but I wanted more. And We Believers, I'm sure we'll get into it. I'll give examples, but it's just been a great experience. Before even the pandemic, I'll give you an example of a work perk. Working from home was something that we built into the agency model right from the beginning. So I was working from home. They got a co-working space on 25th and Park near Baruch College called Neuhaus. So did have the ability to go somewhere and meet other people in other career fields and mingle, because you can't just be at home alone on your MacBook all day. It's not a life that I want to live. So they had the co-working space, then we had an office space in Greenpoint. While I was, in 2016, I was trying to get my MBA at Baruch College. So it was very convenient to have the co-working space, Neuhaus, right next to Baruch College. And that was my life from 2014 to 2019 was just pretty much part-time student, full-time advertising agency guy. And it was tough, but I don't know how I did it. Well, maybe I'll remember. And
Well, you're here now.
I'm here now.
That's what you were looking for, right? That's the fulfillment, the complete
Yeah.
life that you were trying to achieve. So I
Amongst-
sense a theme coming
in very
up here.
turbulent times, because, I mean, similar to right now, 2008, 2009, I remember some of my friends graduating and there were no jobs. So
Wow.
Okay. How about you, Vanessa?
Yeah, I guess I'll start from earlier. So I always grew up and said I wanted to be like a journalist. I was like, I want to be like the Dominican Oprah. We're pretty close right now. But so yeah, I thought I wanted to be a journalist since I was a kid. The journalist or a hairstylist, because I feel like hair was always really big in our culture. And I'll show y'all how I'm kind of close. Not there exactly, but kind of close. That's how life works. I ended up going to Baruch College, and I was like, I want to study something I actually enjoy and that I'm good at. And for me, that was corporate communications. I was in a program called the Emma Bowen Foundation, which is, I'm sure some of y'all have heard about it. It's a program that connects and tries to diversify the media industry. And I got into that program early on, and I remember going through a series of interviews and ultimately getting matched with the Nielsen Company. So I started my career really at Nielsen while I was at Baruch, and it was honestly just groundbreaking experience for me that set the foundation for my entire career. Just getting that early exposure to media, market research, like understanding the business behind marketing and what we see on television was mind-blowing for me. And then I was in another program called Management Leadership for Tomorrow, which was super impactful to my career as well. I had a mentor actually and a career coach who, her name is Rachel Stansfield. She was also a college basketball player. Like immediately she saw herself in me. And she was like, you should try CPG. And I'm like, CP what? I'm trying to be on TV, right? And so she had a long career in consumer goods. And I remember being like, can I really get that passionate about products. Like similar to what you said, like I can only market toothpaste for that long, right? And I was a little skeptical at first, but ultimately she was a really important mentor to me. And I just was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. I'll try. And I interviewed with General Mills, and that company, again, I was very adamant about getting all the opportunities that I wanted. I was very ambitious when I was in college, and I got all those dream jobs. But ultimately for me, General Mills throughout the hiring process was the most authentic, and I'm really big on authenticity throughout the entire process. Like ultimately we have to work many hours a day. You want to work with people that you're inspired by, people that care about you. And for me, it was just a differential level of authenticity in every interaction when I was interviewing at Mills. So I made the crazy decision to leave New York City and move to Minneapolis and work on, because General Mills is headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I worked on a number of brands. So Box Tops for Education. I worked on Cheerios and doing shopper marketing campaigns for Cheerios. I got to work on Gushers and Fruit by the Foot and Chex Mix and do a number of things, managing everything from like TikTok partnerships and influencer and creator partnerships, celebrity partnerships, media buying, just pretty much building the brand and culture. And that was something that I found out early on that I really loved, and just having that impact, like having a seat at the table, being able to have a completely different lens, being an Afro-Latina from New York, moving to Minnesota, oftentimes being the only one, right? That was super, impactful for me early on in my career, and I was pretty fearless because it was like, nope, like we need more people like us behind these brands, people that understand culture, that have empathy. And so I have been on the client side, like I said, most of my career, all of my career. And I was in Minneapolis up until, summer of 2020. We all know what went down. And I ultimately made a personal decision just to be closer to family and really take care of my mental health and just like what was important to me. I think the pandemic put a lot into perspective for me personally. And for me, that was really, truly family. Like excelling in career is amazing, but career will always be there so long as we build it, right? So I transitioned over into working at Unilever. So I've been at Unilever a little over a year, now in a completely different industry. So now I'm in beauty, specifically marketing hair care products. So I work in global product innovation for Dove, which, as you guys all know, Dove, most of y'all know it for the soap, but there are hair care products. And hair is and expression in general in the beauty industry is always something I've been passionate about in my personal life. So I just kind of transferred those skills for brand building that I had in all those years of working in food into now beauty. And a lot of the work I do is literal like product development, like working with R&D and supply chain on actually building and creating a product, as well as a couple of, campaign materials and like casting and like all the commercials you see, not all of them, the ones that are launching in February, I've had some hand in. So that's what I do now.
You guys have hit on so many things.
Yeah,
We can
there's
have
so many topics to talk about.
a whole panel just unpacking your experience. Thank you for that.
sure.
I want to pick up on a couple of the themes, right? I heard a lot of you say passion, a little bit of circumstance, a little bit of the world kind of guiding your career. Can you talk a little bit about sort of some of the resources? You talked about programs, mentors, networking. What are some of the things that you turn to help you guide you through some of these career changes? I'll start with Alexis and then Vanessa and then Juan.
Sure.
I guess just people. I mean, I was never a part of any professional organizations necessarily, aside from just like becoming really close to the other people in my industry. I feel like publishing was a really, at first, isolating place. At the assistant role, which is the entry-level role, you're kind of like sanctioned off to your desk, you only talk to your manager, and it's almost discouraged to make friends, but like about a year in, I was like, I'm gonna make friends. And so I think like making friends, then making other friends in the industry made me feel a lot more comfortable making changes and not feeling like I had to stick with that place or else I couldn't move anywhere.
I think that's a great answer because sometimes I was the opposite. I was in every organization you can think of. Pick me, put me in whatever. And Baruch has a great
yeah.
community. Great. I was there before the vertical campus building, so
Wow.
y'all know I'm old. I'm going back. before the vertical campus, Baruch College, your day-to-day was going to different buildings around Park Avenue because there was no center or there's no tall building that you can all congregate on. The student center was a third floor of a corporate building that had a few pool tables. And that was, be social here in this grungy, desolate office space that they put a pool table on. So vertical campus, really great accomplishment, take advantage of it. And now it's the same thing, it's the third floor, but there's also a gym, there's a ping pong, there's a whole play area, there's the radio station, there's all of those things that can tap any of your passions. So definitely try those. It sounds like I'm tooting my own horn, but I was like committed, very ambitious in college, and I was president of the Toastmasters. I needed to work on, giving speeches and talking on interviews, so let me go do that. Toastmasters was one. I founded the advertising club. So I was like, I like advertising. We have students that are great writers and artists. Let's do a student-run agency, and let's do radio commercials on the radio for the school and in the school newspaper. So I was just out there looking for any and every opportunity. The American Advertising Federation has the National Student Advertising Competition. A competition, I'm doing that. And I did it my junior year. We were terrible, we lost. It's an annual competition, you have to do a pitch of a campaign. So we pitched, it's not even worth mentioning, it was just a bad product and bad campaign from my team. But I was committed, and I said to the advisors at Baruch, the marketing department, I want to do this again. And technically, you're not supposed to take the same class again. Find a way, put me in this, I guarantee we will win. So I was very adamant about doing this competition and winning. And then I went around and recruited other students that I was like, you're a great website guy, you're a coder, you're a copywriter. And they're like, what's a copywriter? I don't know what it is. Don't worry, you're funny, just come along. And together we pitched Coca-Cola in 2007, and first time Baruch College ever won.
Wow.
And it was a major accomplishment because usually it was Syracuse University or George Washington or these, I don't even say Ivy Leagues, but just schools that are very, very known for their communication programs, their advertising, their marketing. And we win. We win, and it changes things for all the students. All the students that participated, including myself, went on to have careers in advertising, marketing, from client side, media side, PR, publishing, everything. And all those students, afterwards, I'm not going to be responsible for their careers, but they all showed up and raised their hand and said, pick me, I want to be in. Yes.
Love that.
So it is sometimes happenstance, sometimes just making friends is important as well. And sometimes it is just, hey, I'll be treasurer. I don't know anything, but I'll do it.
Right.
It's a great testament to making the most of an opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
You signed up for opportunities and you really worked them. I know you just talked about several programs, so I'll switch the question a little bit, right? We've got dozens of people in this room, right? They're encouraging you to network. We talked about people, we talked about signing up, right? Using these opportunities. So you were involved in a lot of organizations. The center has a ton of events. How did you use them specifically?
Yeah.
What did they provide you that
For sure.
you didn't get elsewhere?
I like to start off, there's a really powerful quote that I always remind myself is, your life is a compilation of all the things you say yes to. And I think for me, like similar to you, when I was I just said yes to so many things. It was like, I have nothing to lose. We're in college now. And you got, everyone in this room, if you're still in school or even if you're not, I mean, you have so much power because you can say yes to so many things, and that yes can take you so many places. And so in terms of how I used the resources available to me, it really depended, right? Like I would see an event within my mailbox, my inbox from Center for Communications. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to this. This sounds cool. Even if I had no one to go with, I would just go, and I knew I was gonna meet somebody, or I was gonna figure it out, or learn something that day. And I think having that intellectual curiosity and always just showing up, I commend all of you here. It was raining outside. You really didn't have to be here, but you did, and that shows you guys are saying yes to something, right, for yourself. Whatever that's for, you're gonna leave here with some takeaway. That you'll apply to the next yes in your life.
And sometimes it's even just, wow, there's somebody that looks like her that works at Unilever and on Dove, and she seems okay. She's not some crazy person. No, I'm just saying.
I'm just kidding.
More than okay.
I'm totally
That
joking.
to me, a lot of times was a big. Besides in school, the New York Latino Film Festival just happened. New York Fashion Week just happened. The Fast magazine is having innovation in 2 days, I think, Innovation Summit or something like that.
Yeah.
All these things are available, and for me, it was just like seeing, wow, there's people that look like
Yes.
me, talk like me, are from Colombia or from Medellin or Latino, or just somebody out there that is, and they're willing to talk to you also
Yeah.
afterwards. So.
Yeah, and I would say don't even that is so powerful, like being in spaces where there are more people like you, but I would also encourage, you know, the opposite. There were so many times where I just was like, okay, I'm gonna go to this women's summit at Columbia, and I was sometimes like the only black person, the only Latina there. And I was like, okay, I want to see what y'all learning, right? Like, because you know, we all have a seat at the table to some extent.
You have to become like comfortable in those
right.
uncomfortable situations. And you should,
Right.
it is, I don't know what the quote is, but it is like, if you find yourself amongst people on a table that don't look like you, you're doing
Yeah.
the right thing. Because
Yeah.
that's where you should be.
And I would say too, I mean, we're in, like, this is New York City. I love the fact that I went to Baruch, and the biggest thing I tell people is the city's really like your jungle, right? Like the city is your campus. There's so many free events everywhere. There's publications, there's like different things you can subscribe to. For me, what helped me the most were the programs I mentioned, the Emma Bowen Foundation, the LeGrant Foundation. They're a scholarship program. If you haven't heard of it, definitely check it out. It's money. Y'all got, you know, you could always use some free money, right? And they take you on great experiences as well. MLT, Management Leadership for Tomorrow. That was another really influential program in my career. And I think to your point earlier, people is crucial. Like people in my classes, professors, a lot of people don't always go to their office hours. I was one of those people that's like, I want to learn more. If there was a professor I connected with, or I, you know, was curious about the class, show up to the office hours. Like, I guarantee you, those professors to date, I still keep in contact with. And again, your life is a compilation of the things you say yes to. So when you start saying yes to just showing up and being there and maintaining connections, and also going where the vibe is authentic, you know, like there's times where you might go into a space, you're like, I'm not really feeling this. And that's okay, because you're learning something about what spaces you want to be in, what people you want to be inspired by, etc. So just say yes to everything.
And I would add to that to be curious, right? Everything that you're hearing these folks say is driven by curiosity. Be interested in other people, right? It doesn't have to be opportunistic. Every connection in New York City, quite honestly, is a good one. You never know where people are going to go in their career. To your point about office hours, no one used to come to office hours. I spend a lot of time with the students who do come to office hours, right? And you make real connections. So I would say be open to all the connections, because you never know, right? The person sitting to your left or your right might be the key to the next opportunity that you get.
Or help you find an apartment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's real.
Exactly. All right, so I want to shift gears a little bit and talk more about your work, right? You guys are doing fantastic things. What excites you, right? You all sought out something specific in the roles that you have. Alexis went back to something because she was missing that intellectual stimulation. So talk to me about what about your work you love, what really drives you, and where you see the next thing in the field that might be where you find your passion.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I like about publicity, and I feel in retrospect really lucky, like I said, that I like publicity so much, because there's a ton of competition for editorial jobs in publishing and entry level especially, and I immediately didn't want to do that because it's very isolating and like one task all day. You're going to read this manuscript or edit this manuscript. And I like publicity because it was more outward facing and because it seemed like a cool way to make connections. I did the school newspaper in college, and I was the copy chief, and I kind of just thought that I would like get a journalism job, which I tried to do but wasn't successful in. But then when I learned about publicity, it kind of seemed like a cool way for me to have to know what was going on in the media and then use that to make connections with the thing that I was publicizing. So, like, for example, one of my favorite books I've worked on was this book called Owls of the Eastern Ice, which I wouldn't have read on my own time, but it's about owls, the biggest owl in the world, it's about. And so I got really involved in the birding community, while doing a lot of research into the birding community. And then I connected this author with a lot of just like bird obsessed people, and he did all of these like events that hundreds of people attended because there's so many birders out there, and it just feels really good to make those connections because I don't think the author would have been able to do that on his own. So the thing that I like is connecting people, and then going forward in the industry, I guess. the thing I'm inspired by is like all these new publications popping up, because I feel like I started working in publicity and the narrative was like the newspapers are all like getting rid of their book departments, they're like all shuttering. But now there are all of these new cool, like there's this site called Hellgate NYC that has local journalism, and it's I think it's a subscriber-based model. I need to subscribe. I haven't yet, but I read their free articles. But like they've popped up and they're making it work. The Drift is a literary magazine that popped up and is making it work. There's like Defector, the employee-run media organization from the Deadspin people. So like there are all these new models for journalism, and I find that to be really promising going forward.
No, it's a
Yeah.
very scary. I mean, Village Voice is no longer around, and that's like,
Yeah.
if you got a job at Village Voice, when I was in college, there was kids that's what they want. It was either New York Times, very traditional, or go to Village Voice because I want to do, the punk rock scene in the East Village. And then when it went away, I think it was like dormant for a while. And yeah, most recently, I'm not in the publishing business at all, so I'm just saying, you do start seeing these signs and like sign up for it. And then it's just like, oh, it's another thing in my inbox. And then all of a sudden it's a full-fledged media company. Like, when did that happen? So paid attention to all those things, and liking it is part of the game. So if you don't like, and I don't have to like your products. I work on right now tequila, so not hard not to like that. But I also work on a streaming platform, and then Burger King was a big client of ours. Nothing wrong with Burger King, but you shouldn't have too much of it. So it's not the healthiest food. And there's no Burger King clients here, so we can speak freely. But for me, it's the most exciting thing is creating something from nothing. You get a blank page, and we'll continue with Burger King because it's the most relatable to everybody. Burger King wants people to know that they are getting rid of all the artificial ingredients in their products. How do we communicate that? And because we've been an agency for so many years now, they trust us. So once you have that trust, so the first 2 years you're establishing that trust with the brand, and then once you have it and you have the same client team, and then you can pitch them something crazy. So if you go to our website, you'll see one of the commercials. It's hard to talk about this stuff without the video, because I'm always, at this point I would be like, check this out and show this great commercial. But we did something where we came up with a music video, and it was, what if you went into a Burger King and all these artificial ingredients were like real life characters, like from Sesame Street, like Muppets, and you see them kind of just getting beat up. So we made this kind of personification of artificial ingredients, and like saw them getting like mushed and wiped and burnt, and go eat Burger King, is what it says at the end. Very non-traditional approach to communicating, hey, we have a new product with no artificial ingredients. That's fun to me, and I'm involved from the very beginning. The strategy, what are we trying to say, what the brand truth is, what the human truth is, what's the market, what are people feeling this day? Some messages are sometimes too early. People don't understand it yet, so what's the purpose of no artificial ingredients? Like, some people don't even care about that. Others are right in line, they're very into their wellness and health, and they want everything to be super clean and organic. So just being aware of what's going on in the category, in the world, in yourself, trends, not only in your own little world, but outside of your world. Like we did Burger King for Mexico. So we were trying to communicate this in Mexico, where it's a completely different environment, perception of meat and fast food products. Burger King is actually sometimes considered a premium product in Mexico because it's priced a little bit higher, and same thing in other countries. So it's not the same perception, and artificial ingredients, like, I don't care. It's
Burger King.
It's Burger King. So just being aware. But for me, it's just from beginning to end. I think a movie sometimes takes like 15 to 16 months. We do things in 6 to 8 months, from idea to a finished campaign that you see on your phone. That's exciting. It's that turnover. I interned at Lee Daniels' production. He made Monsters Ball and Precious, the movie with Precious. Great director, but I was there for about 6 months. I saw him once, never got to be on a set. All I was told was to read scripts. I was like, because I wanted to be in the movie business, and it just took too long, and it was just not gratifying. I needed something a little bit more of my speed, and advertising does that for me. And so I get excited. I was like, okay, we have a new budget, new project, new anything. You guys need us to communicate what? And we have a blank page to fill, and I'm not the creative, I'm the account manager. So I'm just kind of working with the creatives, with designers, with strategists, and then guiding them along, presenting to the client, hoping they like it. They don't like that idea, present 10 more, they don't like any of them. The 11th one, yes, that's the one. It's all exciting to me. It's all exciting because you're just trying to reach that end vision for the creative. They want to showcase this idea and then watching it in market. For Burger King Mexico, we did also the social media. So I would be the one that would sometimes, because we're a small agency, I do it all pretty much, or you wear many hats. So not only help produce it, but also publish it on social media for Burger King, because we were the social agency as well. And all of a sudden, 1 million people liked it. I never got that kind of response on my personal feed, so it was always exciting to just be part of that. And like, wow, people are responding to this thing we created. And knowing we created a whole campaign, so this is the teaser, and then the video comes, and you treat it like a book or a movie. What I would love to do next, and as an agency, we talk about it, is like, when you do a commercial, most people just think a 15, 30-second commercial. A lot of times what we do is a case study, which is about 1 minute or 2 minutes, talking about an activation, something that we did. So we, for different clients, will go do a stunt or an activation or event, and then you kind of have a recap video showcasing what you did. So Corona, we did plastic fishing tournament. We had tournaments where we had fishermen go out and catch plastic instead of fish, and then get paid for that. So because we need to get all that plastic out of the ocean. And that program then started in Mexico and went to all around the world. I think 10 cities have done it. So we produced a film, it's 2 minutes. It's not considered a film that you would go watch in your theater, but I think for us, for me, there's that little dream of we've accomplished a lot in the advertising world. Why can't we do a little doc, a little mini-series, a webisode? Something unrelated with no clients paying, just something that we want to tell the world. And all our creatives have that, they know that they could, if they wanted to, pitch it to the chief creative officer, and I don't know, Goose, maybe he'll do it, I don't know, we'll see.
Cool. Definitely a trend in brand storytelling for sure,
Yeah.
right? People, there's an endless appetite for content, and some of those skills of movie making and storytelling we're seeing them in the advertising
You
world.
talk to any creative director that's worthy of his name and really good, and a lot of them, are very eco-friendly, very environmentally conscious, and I mean, we should be all aware about the climate crisis, and I feel bad just even holding this plastic bottle, but if you have all these skills and creativity, you want to lend your talent to a cause that's worth it. So,
For sure.
in this day and age, obviously, inclusion is a big one, but just pretty much go to like the UN Sustainable Development Goals and pick one of those
Yep.
and focus on that, and that's what any creative would want to do.
Yeah, no
With their
shortage
time.
of problems to solve with your skills.
Yeah, there's
out there.
17 of them, so find one.
How about you, Vanessa? You talked about your love of hair converging with your passion for consumer products. You didn't tell us what the second sport was.
Oh, I played basketball and softball.
Okay,
in college.
now that we got that out of the way.
Yes, now that you have it.
Talk about your passion and what
Yeah.
really excites you and what you see in terms of the branding world. What's next for you in terms of
For
what
sure.
excites you?
Yeah, I think my passion is definitely people and connection and inclusivity. Those are always have been like at the core of who I am my entire life. And I think for me, I always, even just as I think about my job journey, I'm big on just aligning myself to purpose and to calling rather than title. Because when you know what season you're in life, you can further fulfill the purpose that, God has for you or whoever you believe has for you. And for me, like I said, the decision to move here, Unilever, this opportunity, I had no idea even existed. I kind of got poached for this role. So I had no idea I would ever be doing product innovation at Dove. So that's why I say it's funny because I wanted to be a hairstylist. Now I'm kind of like a brand storyteller on a hair care brand. And for me, I think just expression and creativity have always been super important to me. And I think in my current role, I mean, it's all about empowering. I mean, Dove is a brand that has been empowering women for decades. And the brand values aligned very, very closely with my personal values on inclusion for all women and just elevation of women. And I think the beauty industry, we've seen it, throughout the years, has such an important role in how people see themselves and how people feel beautiful, how people get joy, et cetera. And they also have a really critical role in, defining our future, right? Like we see, we've made a lot of progress, I would say, in terms of inclusivity. I know when I was younger, like, you know, on all television, you know, beauty, there was a certain standard of beauty, which often was a ethnocentric, you know, a Eurocentric standard of beauty. And I think I was always drawn to what Dove has done to kind of demystify that and show real bodies and show real skin and show real women. Before working at Unilever, I had learned about the Crown Act, which is all about ending race-based hair discrimination, right? Like, you know, up until recently, there are certain states where I could have been fired for wearing my hair the way it is. I couldn't, you know, we could be allowed to not allowed to graduate because of our hairstyles. And again, all of that is rooted in systemic issues that, you know, we're well aware of. And for me, inclusion and like social justice has always been something I've been super passionate about from the moment I was a kid. And so it was like, okay, how do I channel all these passions, but also like get work done and do it effectively, right? Get a paycheck for it. And I think for me, just like I said, even from when I was at Nielsen, from when I was at General Mills, I always just had like a curiosity and a drive to change the way people, you know, saw things and change the way we think about marketing to Hispanics, or, you know, change the way we think about marketing. And I think in order to do that, I had to always like speak up and be in positions where I built connections with people who might have been so preoccupied with just driving a P&L and like the financials, right? And which is something that I equally marry. So in part of the work that I do now, it's a little more analytical than what I've done before, which has been more traditionally, again, in brand experience and working with agencies, et cetera. I personally like being on the client side, and we were talking about this earlier, because I think that some of that thinking, that creative strategy is like missing sometimes at the client side. Like everyone's so ready to grow a business and grow a brand, which is so important. That's how, you know, businesses are profitable. But for me, it's like, how do we marry empathy and creativity and like with data and analytics and actually create something big? Because at the end of the day, like products sell to consumers. That industry is going to be sustainable for a very long time. Like we all need to wash our hair, we all need to eat. Like, so, and a lot of people have such a strong affinity to brands. And I learned that being on a bunch of different brands. And so for me, like I said, I've always found a way to marry the things I've been passionate about and also just show up and know that I can make an impact wherever I am. And in my current role, I think what's most exciting and energizing for me is, again, being in that decision-making chair of, you know, seeing, okay, what innovations are trending? What is going to be trending in the next 5 years? How do I, like, talk to consumers and hear more about their, like, routines and craft the whole product based off that? And how do I, like, you know, I get like a nerd reading through, like, insights and reports. But I also love the human side, right? Like, I know how to watch a spot and be like, I don't think that's gonna work, right? Because I have that personal intuition. And I think that that's equally important when you're on the client side or at any big company, big or small, having that intuition and emotional intelligence, and never underestimating your role, even as a consumer, and how you shop and how you interact on social media. All those things are very important to how you make business decisions, because the rest can be learned. But that empathy and like ability to relate to people and care about people and want to change the world, that can't always be taught. So I've just been really fortunate that I feel like, you know, life has led me to work on a bunch of different brands. And now I'm just in the business of trying to change the beauty industry because it impacts all of us and we should all be seen.
Just revolutionizing the beauty industry. As you're all talking, I'm hearing, even though you're saying completely different things, I'm hearing common themes. And the big one is that as the world changes, right, there are opportunities, and each of you is kind of sitting in an opportunity, right? Media is completely blown up, right? The gatekeepers are no longer. It's all about the niche publications, and you see that as an opportunity, right? Storytelling is different, and so there's a need for people to really just get back to creativity and tell cool stories that touch people emotionally to sell the product. Yes, we got to sell the product, but let's tell a good story. And then in your case, right, everything is perfectly aligned, right? What you want is also what consumers want. They want to feel good. They want the brands to represent the things that they value. So shifting from that to the opportunities for these folks, I'd like to talk about some of the practical advice that you would give, right? Where are the opportunities, and what do you recommend as some of the ways into the field? We'll start with Juan. Juan is ready to go.
Oh, really? I am?
Yeah.
Okay. How to get into the field?
Where are the opportunities? Where would you say is a good place to focus if you want to get into the advertising agency?
You're starting tonight because you're here, and I'm sure Vanessa and I and yourself are going to stay around and talk, whatever. I can only speak to advertising agencies. If you want to go to client side, usually you need to get the MBA. Usually. There are paths around that, but most of consumer packaged goods companies, spirits companies, even a Burger King corporation will tell you, get that MBA. When you're getting your MBA, I joined the National Hispanic organization that later became Prospanica. And again, we're going back to the first point of join and show up and raise your hand and pick me. That's what you should be doing. And you're meeting people every single day that can potentially hire you or change your mindset, help you launch your own business. I launched my own business as a multicultural marketing, advertising consultant, I guess. But I was still just an agency guy working as an employee, but treating myself and paying myself. So don't be afraid of not going the route. I didn't get the fellowship. I didn't get this program. Maybe there's a way that you can launch your small little business, and there's just so many different things that you can do on the internet. It's just incredible. All my little nephews and nieces all want to become YouTube influencers, TikTok influencers. I don't even know what that means. I don't know how to help them. But I'm like, what are you passionate about? And some of them, they're young, so I just want to be rich. And the rich people are all influencers. Like, okay, but they all talk about something. So what's your passion? I was like, no, I just want to play video games. And I was like, well, do you want to be a Twitcher? And understand these places. It's all happening right now today in New York City. So I can recall so many experiences, again, being somewhere, meeting someone, having the right experiences, the right kind of knowledge, the right perception, the attitude to win, the attitude to want to help. And the New York Latino Film Festival I was part of for many years. We actually used to show films here. And I got to meet some of the music video directors and movie directors. Eventually, one of them needed me to be in a film. It was more of a joke, but hey, he did cast me in the film. And then he's like, I need you to do the marketing for the film. Wow, these things are happening left and right. I don't even know how. There's just, if you're passionate about it, you're excited about it, and you show up and you're like somebody that looks like they could put together whatever needs to be put together. If you like music, a lot of the music industry today is changing. The streaming platforms and independent artists, they may have all the skills to be like the next Billie Eilish, but they don't have the skills to upload her music on SoundCloud or wherever. Find those people. So either start your own, find a place that'll hire you and learn. And there's no right or wrong path. I was at a huge agency, Young and Rubicam. I thought I made it. I would do these kind of talks back at Baruch College, and people were like, wow. And then I was gone from there 6 months later. Don't be afraid of change too. If you're not entry level, but you're mid-career. I'll finish off with Fernando Machado was the CMO of Burger King. Before that, he was at Dove doing Real Beauty for Women. And now he's at Activision. I don't know the connection between those three. I'll leave it up to the audience to figure it out. But he was the CMO of each of these and has had impact. He was there. He was president. From what I hear in anecdotes and here and there is that, Activision came and kind of poached them, and he said, "Video games, Activision. All right, I can do that." And he went for it. So I wish I had more tactical, but it's very specific to your story. So whatever you're trying to do with your life, there's other people that are in the same kind of path. Line up with them and do it together, or show up at whatever event or whatever place the people that you look up to are. VaynerMedia is a huge media agency, and they have a famous CEO, Gary Vaynerchuk, and that guy's out there in Hudson Yards. Go find him. He's the kind of guy that you can go up to if you have an idea. And like, if you get the opportunity to talk to somebody who has power, be ready with a bold statement. Be ready with a bold idea. Know what they're up to. Know what CEOs or CMOs or their hiring agent, whoever it is, know what keeps them up at night. And show up with, even if it's a terrible idea, pitch that idea. Because the way you pitch it might win you the job.
Yeah, and have your portfolio ready, right? Because you never know when
Yeah.
the opportunity is going to show up. How about you, Vanessa? Maybe tell us a little bit about networking and
Oh, yeah.
advice for these folks in that regard.
For sure. I think, when we hear the word networking, it can be very daunting for people depending, if you're an introvert, extrovert, etc. If you guys can't already tell, I'm a massive extrovert. But all my friends are introverted. So I feel y'all introverts in the room. For me, I think networking across, Issa Rae is one of the people I look up to tremendously just because she's done so many amazing things. But she always talked about the power of networking across in her industry versus always focusing on networking up. And that honestly has been so influential within my own career. As mentioned, like a lot of jobs that you get are from referrals, right? Even if you're interviewing for other jobs, like there could be people around your age or similar experiences that could guide you through. A lot of my promotions have been through peer mentors, like helping me. So I think never underestimate, of course, like talking to the CEO and the CMO and staying ready so you never have to get ready is very important. But don't underestimate the power of networking across. Like there's plenty of people in this room. You should leave here with at least 2 or 3 peer contacts that you actually get lunch with at a later date, because again, you will never know. Some of these connections could last you a lifetime. So to me, peer networking is super important. And then in terms of like advice overall, the 2 main things I would say is 1, like know your superpower. Everyone in this room has one, and like I know we're not always like socialized to understand what our superpowers are, but take a mental note of the things that bring you energy and what is easy, what's seamless to you, right? Is it like coming up with creative pitches? Is it writing? Is it speaking? Is it not doing any of that and knowing how to like mentally mind map things? I think there's literal jobs and titles that are all those things. I just mentioned copywriting, strategy, like all the things that I mentioned tied to specific titles or functions. So understanding what your superpower is, what you're good at, and what comes easy to you, and what you enjoy. And sometimes those 3 things are not all the same, but I think having the emotional intelligence and self-awareness to know what drives you, what are you good at, what do you enjoy, very important. And then lastly, just being pretty fearless. Again, like we're in a position, we're all humans. I think the pandemic also helped us kind of like humanize the world a little bit. Everyone's going through different sets and baskets of issues, and I think no person is ever too big. Like we're all human at the end of the day. So being fearless enough to, if you do see a CMO or a CFO, like have the confidence to walk up. I remember when I was an intern, like at Nielsen, I would literally just walk up to the C-suite and walk up to people's desks and be like, hey, I'm the intern on this team, like would love to catch up with you, and I'd actually follow up. And these people still advocate for me now, like a decade later in my career. So I think just being fearless and knowing that as humans, we're all pretty similar, right? We go through the same thing. Don't think that any human is too high or too above, and always go again where the good energy is and where you feel yourself with good people. That's really important.
And COVID has made everyone more generous, right, with their time. Yeah. Everybody's looking to help people because everyone knows everyone's struggling. I will come to Alexis in 1 second. We are getting ready to close, I think, so I wanted to point out if anyone has a question, you can start to line up on the microphones momentarily. But Alexis, your advice in terms of places to focus, specific recommendations or suggestions in terms of networking and how to break into publicity. You talked a little bit about tons of competition for those editorial assistant roles. I definitely remember that from publishing. What are some ways in you recommend for folks?
I'm a little more introverted, I would say, so networking is a scary word to me. But like when I think about it, I know I said earlier I wasn't a part of like any professional organizations, but I did a lot of stuff in college. Like I was on the newspaper, I was president of my housing co-op, I worked at the movie theater, I had these different internships at literary like nonprofits that help teach kids. And like if I really think about it, when I say my story of how I got my job, it's like I took this course at Columbia and then I learned about this job or whatever, but really like I knew someone from the newspaper who worked there. And then my next job, I knew someone from the movie theater who worked there. And then my next job, I knew someone from my first job who worked there. So it's really just like, I mean, I'd like to think that I was also qualified and like interviewed well, and I think both those things have to be necessary.
No, you have to show up ready,
but like,
Yeah.
but like, I think that just finding your people in the, like doing things you're interested in, then you'll find other people who are interested in the same things, and then you all together will find your spots in the industry. I'd also say, just in terms of opportunities, this like I know I'm only 27, but this makes me feel old. Like with TikTok you were talking about. I don't know how to use it, and I feel like no one in publishing knows how to use it, and it's really embarrassing, and like we need young people to teach us how to not be embarrassing online, because I feel like every time we try to like target like young people, it's especially at like some of the older publishers, it's like kind of cringe. So, so yeah, I don't know. Show off that you can like do stuff on
It's
your
true,
phone
it's
and
true.
computer.
I mean, listen. Luckily, I do know how to use TikTok.
That's amazing.
But there are certain things that, again, because I know TikTok, I'm able to call out like a super senior person who's like, hey, do this on TikTok. I'm
don't
like,
do that.
ain't gonna work, right? So that like emotional intelligence again, or just knowledge of culture, like definitely don't underestimate that. And I think a lot of that is lacking, and everyone's looking for it. So
And that can be your superpower.
right.
Your superpower can be, I'm a student and I don't have any experience, but I know TikTok. And when I say TikTok, I mean I know this niche product that's brand new, that I know sneakers, I know this, I know that. Like
Yep.
there's definitely that can be a superpower. And about people being generous, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely assholes out there in C-suite, and we keep seeing CEO, CMO. I mean, anybody in position of power to hire you. When you approach them, obviously be ready, but mention that you're a student and that you're curious about something and you need help. There's no reason most people in positions of power, they want to help.
They do.
And the exchange is they want to have somebody young that they can tap into, and hey, and sometimes it might just be help me track my daughter on my phone. I don't know, whatever. But just be ready, be sociable, because sometimes it's not just all about work. I'm a real person, you're a real person.
Yes.
I acknowledge that you're 50 years old and very different lifestyle than me, but we can be friends.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you guys so much. I can see folks lining up. If you wouldn't mind, just say your name and what school you're with, and I'll direct your question to one of the panelists.
Hi, everybody. My name is Trey Rogers. I'm a grad student studying marketing at the New York Institute of Technology.
Nice.
Go Bears, if anybody are in here. My question was dedicated to you, ma'am. You mentioned how the best way to go forward is to know what season that you're in. So if you take somebody like me who feels like they're in the season of learning, but you're going for a industry that is constantly moving and you feel like you're losing out of time, what is the best way to go forward?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing you identified is you just said what season you're in, which is learning. And I think a lot of people don't even do the reflection to know what season they're in. So you're already on the right track. And learning is going to be a continuous season. Like, you can master things, but you're always, if you have the mentality that you want to learn, you're always going to be learning. And that's why I think in a fast-paced marketplace, whatever, I guess, industry you're looking to work in, there's always something to be learned, right? We're talking about how people don't know TikTok. It's because things are changing rapidly. Like, TikTok has grown massively as a platform, even within the past 2 years. So I would say keeping up with trends and knowing, okay, what do you want to learn? Like, what sparks your interest? What do you want to learn enough that you can like slightly master? And that can be a skill and an asset for you in your next season. To me, like identifying, okay, what industry do I want to learn more about? Do I want to do more research on? What skills can I acquire? Like, for example, digital, e-commerce, like all these things are super important within, I guess, within CPGs right now. People are looking to see how shoppers shop. If you can get a certification on that, or if you could learn a little more on that, if that interests you, that's an example. So I would say identifying like what industry you want to work in, or companies, brands, et cetera, and then what are some of the skill sets required within those industries.
And school will help you with that because I'm sure, I don't know what year you're in, but like case studies start coming in and you just have to do case study analysis, case study. One of those is gonna be like, I didn't read every single case study in my career, school career, and I'm sure, but the ones that really stood out to you, oh wow, something in this attracted me, and it will be surprising to you. Like, I remember the Zipcar case study, and it was like 2 women who started it, and then unfortunately they lost it, but it was just like those first 2 or 3 years. I remember being somebody that was gonna like potentially needing to rent a car and living it. So you're gonna reading it in theory and then go out there and like you're gonna encounter this where you're gonna read a case study and then you're gonna be out and about in your regular life and something's gonna like a eureka moment, like oh, and you're gonna have an original idea because you've been learning and absorbing like a sponge. You squeeze something, some good juice is gonna come out, hopefully.
And I would say is also set goals for yourself and track them too, because I think like when we always are like, oh, we're learners, like we're learners, but we know stuff too. Remember, remember to track the things you're learning and turn them into when you're interviewing for your next job. Hey, I actually this is something I've mastered. This is a core skill of mine, and be able to articulate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
All right, so we'll alternate sides.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer. I recently graduated from Pace University with a dual MBA, marketing management and business with a concentration in entertainment. And I just want to thank you all for giving a chance for all of us and also just being here and sharing your words of wisdom with us.
Thank you.
So my question is, many of you have pivoted in your careers or even given chances to completely new sectors, some of which may have not been so exciting. How do you bridge the gap between giving things a chance and following something that you know you're destined for?
So we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to give each question to one panelist. Let's give this one to Alexis.
So like I left publishing. Honestly, the thing was that I had only worked in publishing before, so I didn't know if I was destined to work there. I liked it, but I found myself always thinking at a certain point, like, what if there's something I would like more? I think what really, and I was terrified. Like, it took me, I interviewed sporadically for the last 2 years of working there. Every time I interviewed, like you were just talking about, like, I realized that I knew more than I thought I did. And, like, so that was helpful. But I think that just realizing that nothing's permanent, like, you can always change your mind. In my mind, I was like, if I go to this PR job and I hate it, which I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it, there's this thing in my mind where I'm like, I'm never going to be able to go back. And I didn't go back to the same place, but I went kind of back to a better place, in my opinion. I don't know. I think it's that nothing is permanent. That's kind of my little mantra with that.
That's the beauty of the learning season, right? Everything is, you're going to learn something, right? Every experience, you're getting some new bullet points for your resume, new talking points for the interview, and it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next.
Hello, thank you guys for your time this evening. I really appreciate all of the advice. My name is Imani, and I'm a grad student at the New School studying media management. And yes, graduating in May, thank God. So I had a question about battling imposter syndrome in the workplace as a person of color and trying your best to assess and articulate your talent in those seats in places that you're one of only, because I've been a Black woman in a lot of my spaces, and now navigating marketing and media, I definitely want to know, like, what are the ropes with that?
Yeah.
I'll let you have this,
I
Vanessa.
can say
I might chime in. I might chime in.
No,
Go ahead.
please. So imposter syndrome, I remember learning about it and being like, what? This has a name? Like, and again, it's the feeling of like, is this all fake? Like, do I really belong here? And I think life, especially when you're going after things that are challenging and you're going after big things and big impact, you're always gonna have moments of imposter syndrome. It's more so recognizing what's happening to you and what are some lies you're telling yourself. Because I think a lot of times we have like a mental game. Imposter syndrome is a very like mental thing. You're like, oh my God, like, do I really belong here? Am I? No, the answer is always yes. You do belong. There is a reason why you are there. And for me, I've always had to tell myself, no one in this room has the lived experience that I have. Period. Yep. So I know I'm an asset, even just for that. Even if I don't know anything that we're talking about in this room, no single person has the same lived experience as me, as a Black woman, as a Latina, as a woman, right? No one has that. And that is part of my superpower. So I think everyone, whether you're like Black, white, Asian, no one has your lived experience in this room. So when you're in spaces where you are the only one, or you're the youngest, or the only person of color, that mental talk of imposter syndrome, when that kicks in, you have to recognize, okay, is it me telling me this? Because no one else is telling me that. Like, did somebody in this room, did a boss come and tell me that I don't belong? Or am I telling me that? And once you learn to distinguish those voices in your head, you'll begin to silence them because you're living in your superpower. You're like, no, are you kidding? Like, I belong here. This is why. I might have an off day, but this is why I'm here. And I think those affirmations are so important. And you do belong. Because the industry, I'm telling you right now, the media industry does not look like us. And there's a reason why you're in this industry. There's a reason why you will be successful when you're in those rooms because of part of your lived experience. And not just that, because I think that's another thing a lot of women and a lot of people of color tell themselves, like, oh yeah, you know, I'm here because No, it's also your knowledge. What are you learning in your learning season? People love to ask me about being a Black woman, about being a Hispanic woman, but it's like, ask me about being a marketer. Ask me about strategy and analytics, because I could also give you a badass answer there too. So again, know your superpower, know why you belong, and the industry needs all of us to progress.
Thank you so much.
That was good.
The only thing I will add to that brilliant answer, because I agree 100%. Everyone else in the room is thinking the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
That is the
Love
one
that.
lesson that I learned too late in life, is that everyone feels it. Everyone is faking it till they make it, so you are at no disadvantage. Be you, know your superpower, because they need it.
Yeah.
All right.
When you find that first job, or hopefully you can find a peer, an ally, somebody, and a lot of times I didn't have that, but hopefully some of you will, and you know, have those conversations, those real conversations, and you know, look at each other like, you're good at your job, you're good at your job. We can't both be imposters.
Right.
So it helps to have other peers validate you a little bit, but it is her answer. Like, believe in yourself, step outside yourself and look at yourself and like, you're bringing a lot of new stuff to the table.
Yep, 100%. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Eilidh, I'm from Dublin, Ireland. I moved here about 3 months ago by myself.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. I studied film and broadcasting in college. I majored in podcast production. I did my dissertation in the beauty industry, looking at subcultures and online. So Vanessa, I see a lot of correlations, and also like you, I want to end up working client side, doing some sort of brand marketing. And Juan, I know you were saying that in order to get there, you must do an MBA. So that was kind of my question.
Do I have my MBA?
or do you need one? Can I get away with not doing one?
Yeah, so most times for brand management roles, again, every company is different and functions are different. For brand management roles, you usually actually do need an MBA for big CPG. I, on the other hand, had enough experience that I'm in an MBA preferred role, but they looked at my experience and my impact and the campaigns of it, and they were like, oh yeah, like, just come. So I really think it depends on the experience that you have and the impact that you've made. Definitely MBA helps. Like, I've also considered going back to school. But again, I'm now in a position where I don't necessarily need it in order to progress within, at least within CPG. So I would say, like, for the MBA process and whether or not you go for it, that's definitely a personal choice. And make sure your why is strong enough, because that is a big investment. Like, it is a lot of time, energy, resource, etc. And if it's for you, go for it. Like, if you realize, yes, my why is strong enough, this is what I want to do, it is an easier track to get to brand management in the sense that a lot of CPGs or big brands recruit out of business schools. But I will say, like, at Unilever in particular, there's not a direct pipeline from, like, they're not going to specific MBA schools and hiring out of that. Sometimes it's now shifting to, like, what experience and what impact have you had before. So I feel like you're gonna have to answer that for yourself in terms of, you know, what is your why at this point for yourself, but know that there is a world where you can get so much experience that can count tremendously.
Oh yeah, one route for you potentially is with the podcasting. Find I don't know which category or what industry, but with the podcasting alone, you could just get hired right out and earn your way up to be in a brand management position, but be hired to be a podcasting consultant, let's just say. Because again, I was around before social media came on board, and Remy Martin, for example, or Nivea, where I worked, and we launched their page in 2010, 2011. They had 20,000 fans, and it was just like, we would just want a lot of more followers.
Yeah.
And on the brand side, I was reporting to a girl younger than me. She was like 24, because I don't know who she knew, but she was a social media expert. And with the podcasting, you can create a role for yourself.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm a podcaster myself, so I love that you said that. And I just think, like, figuring out what function you want to work in is really particularly important, especially on the client side, because for brand experience, like more comms focused roles, if you want to do more of like the media, the comms, the creative, I can tell you most people don't have their MBA. But if you want to do more like brand management, like managing a P&L, actually working on product innovation, which is what I do now, that's where the MBA is super valuable.
Okay, well, thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
And not to mention competitor, L'Oreal is right here on 28, so stand out there and talk to somebody. I'm serious. It works.
Estee Lauder.
I'm
They're
just
all
body
here.
L'Oreal. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. You go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Michael Izzo. I just graduated from Fordham University.
Ooh, congrats.
And I'm back from my Master's of Science in Media Management. My question was specifically for Juan, because I know that you spoke deeply about, like, you know, your cultural passion, and I felt like a connection between you and me because as a first generation Italian American, my father being from Italy, I was just curious, you know, how exactly you were able to take your passion for your cultural pride and be able to use it and apply it to where you are today in the work world, because I know that you said that while you did meet like those other Latinos in the media company, like how exactly did you take what it was that you liked and knew what you wanted to do with it and get to where you are?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a hard one because at some point you have to make a choice. You can just kind of settle. And I got into advertising, and again, I picture myself 2010, I was at Y&R, Young and Rubicam, the agency, very traditional, working on Colgate, and telling myself like I should be ecstatic, I should be happy, but something's missing. And that missing was the culture, language. When I moved from one agency to another agency to another agency, and I finally landed at the Vidal partnership, I was put on Remy Martin. And I'm like, I'm at a Hispanic agency, but I'm doing an African American product. And it wasn't in Spanish. I was like, at least the people around me. And again, it's knowing yourself. It's what do you really, really get motivated in the morning? I don't know for you if it's Italian language or cooking or soccer. I mean, it's a World Cup year. Whatever it is, I've never been like a huge soccer fan, but I started working at an agency with other huge soccer fans. I was like, okay, you guys got that. I like basketball and hip hop more. So it's just knowing yourself, learning yourself, what you bring to the table that's different and can be a value add. I had so in advertising agencies, it's different than the media world, but it's similar in the sense of the titles, the hierarchy. At traditional places, entry-level account executive, and you have an account soup or an account director. My account soup or account director knew the soccer stuff, so I was like, I don't even have to talk. He knows all the soccer stuff for our clients. But when they would mention, for Remy Martin specifically, it was Robin Thicke, the Blurry Lines music video, and Pharrell, who's a huge music producer, and nobody else in the room knew who he was except me. And I was like, okay, this is the kind of stuff that I want to be doing. I want to be the one that knows this little item from my culture. And my culture isn't necessarily like Colombia, the country. I was born there. I was raised in Queens, New York. So if anything, I'm a Colombian, New York. If anything, I'm just a New Yorker with that speaks Spanish. So find that out for yourself. It took a lot of years of experiences to figure that out for myself, because a lot of times you get hired to do the cliche kind of marketing or advertising. Just, oh, it's a Mexican product, put a sombrero on it. Or tequila, for tequila brands, which I work on now. And it's like, this is a much more complex culture than just a sombrero.
Yeah.
So you have that knowledge for Italy because that's your culture. But you also, I'm sure, Fordham threw you out there into the world. So it's more than just the language. It's more than just the things that people from your country are supposed to love. It's you, yourself, inside of you. You got something different that no other Italian has and that no other American has. So tapping into those things that make you happy. For me, it all culminated at We Believers because they brought me on to work on Spectrum, which is a cable, and I love TV programs, series, novelas, all of it. I love just the act of producing something. And it was all in Spanish, and it was just tapping into insights that I didn't even know were insights. They were just things that I knew from my block, from my hood. But they're important to these marketers. So you have all that inside you. It's gonna take time, bro. It's gonna take time for you to, I don't like this, I do like this, and then you knowing how to apply it. When I did my interview for We Believers, it was 5 seconds, it was 5 minutes. I had the job before I walked into the door because they already knew me, and you'll have that as well. And when I was brought in, I was told, we need you to be organized, and we just need you to talk. A lot of the creators for our agency are in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, or in Mexico, and I was the one in New York. So there was just so much information about you want to talk to a New York market, there's a certain way to talk to New Yorkers in Spanish or English. So I realized that I had that value that I could bring to the table.
Yeah.
You'll find it, you will, trust me.
Find your unique thing.
Your unique thing and tied to your culture. It's gonna come from your culture regardless.
Hi everyone, I'm Sofia Rodriguez, a first-year undergraduate student at the New York Institute of Technology.
Nice.
I'm majoring in business administration with a concentration in marketing, and I just wanted to know, what is one thing that you guys did in your undergraduate, college career that really helped you jumpstart this inspiration or get you to where you are today?
I'll throw this to Alexis.
I guess I talked about some of this, but I feel like my first instinct is to say like the college newspaper, but actually I feel like my service job taught me just as much, and I met as many cool people and felt like I learned more about the world. I guess it was a combination of all these different things I did. I don't know if I have like a full answer to this.
I think the one thing I did, I failed an entire semester at Syracuse University. I got Fs in all 5 classes. So that was a wake-up call. I had a full scholarship to Syracuse University for being poor, Latino, immigrant, first generation, all that stuff. And so I graduated college in 2000, and I got the scholarship offer, and they said, you can come. And then I said, oh, I don't have my green card. I don't have my alien number yet. It's coming. Like, oh, we'll hold your spot for next year. So 2001, I go up. Now I have my green card, I'm legal. And that was just a whole other story. It took 8 years to get legal in this country. And now I'm at Syracuse, and it's upstate 5 hours, dorm life, all great. At the time I wanted to be in music. I was like, I'm gonna be the Latino Puffy Combs, P. Diddy Combs. That's what I wanted. And I was studying for music, a music management program. And it was a party school, it was homesick, I was working. I forgot that I had to go to certain classes, I guess. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was just not focused.
No one here knows anything about that, right? Everybody goes to
Not focused, women, drugs, alcohol, parties. I was very, very cool with the entire incoming basketball team, and they get a lot of perks. So I thought I was part of the team. I thought that would be taken care of, because the people I was hanging out with, the surroundings, they could all just skip a class and somebody would take care of it, which is unfortunate, but not me. And I forgot that. So that big failure, I came back, I had to look at my mom, Ma, am I going to Syracuse? I was like, why not? It's like, well, they're not taking me back. that was just a wake-up call. So I share that story usually at the end. Like, people are like, wow, he's got stuff going on. But, like, I failed an entire semester. And it was a wake-up call. So then I came to Baruch, and I was like, I ain't playing around.
Right.
I got to get focused. And when you saw me at Baruch, I was at a job selling billboards. I had to wear a suit. So everybody was like, who's this nerd? I had Don Omar braids and a suit. And I was like, I'm focused. So that was the one thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
That was the one thing.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to actually share your L's.
No,
you know,
we want to help. So just don't be. I mean, don't fail. I'm not telling you to go fail.
Right.
But sometimes, and to relate it to you, just don't be afraid to fail. You're young. You're a junior. You said. Freshman. Oh my God. No. Please fail. I went. Like I said, I interned at Lee Daniels. I thought it was like, oh my God, I made it. This guy made Monsters Ball. I'm gonna meet Halle Berry. Monsters Ball is a famous movie. I don't know. He is a movie producer, a film producer, like really well known now. And I thought I had made it, but it was just like, this is boring. I'm wasting my time. Yeah. So to me, it was a failure. I interned at TVT Records, Blunt Records. I helped put out an album, Snoop Dogg and the East Side Boys. It sold like 5 copies. It was terrible. So to me, that was a failure. And I didn't really. But you got something out of it, right? But I learned I'm not gonna do movies. I'm not gonna do music. So.
Every failure is a lesson, right? Yep. So embrace them. You're going to get something out of it, and you can have a new shot.
Yeah. Try not to fail, but if you fail, don't.
Yes. Try to avoid.
Yeah.
All right.
Fail fast.
We have time for one last question, but if you don't get to ask your question, these folks generously will be around. Please get your question across. But our last question at the microphone, we'll go over here.
My name is Divine Life Williams. I went to NYU and I graduated in 2020. And I guess that's kind of like why my question is a little bit more so about professional pivots again. I was curious about how the experience, specifically Vanessa's experience, was with being an experienced hire versus like an early, I guess, career applicant, and how, like, I guess you utilize your skill sets that you developed in the previous jobs, I guess, brand yourself, and then, utilize that in whatever interviews you were doing. I'm on my, like, I guess, second full-time position after college. I worked at Viacom as a production coordinator and then an associate producer for VH1 Digital, and now I'm working for a company doing DEI work, which I thought I would love, but it's really personal, and I feel like even though I love doing that type of work, I want to like pivot more so into spaces that, allow me to do less of the strategy and more of like the creation of content and work towards that. So I was just curious about, and anyone obviously, since you've all pivoted, can answer that.
Sure. So pivoting, again, that's part of life, right? What I said earlier about life will take you on different seasons and it's all a journey. So my experience has been, coming into Unilever as an experienced hire was really like my first, I would say, major pivot, because coming out of undergrad, like most of my career was at General Mills where I had interned. Like I had all these relationships established there, mentors, sponsors, knew the place relatively well, made strong impact. And then at Unilever, I honestly didn't know like anyone. It's a massive global company. I mean, General Mills is also a global company, but Unilever is like super global. Like people on my team are based, in London and China, like everywhere. So it was tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. A lot of times when you come in as an experienced hire, you don't get the same like red carpet as people who were hired immediately after college or who had been in a rotational program or whatever the case is. So I did deal with feelings of like, oh my God, I have to reprove myself now? Like, everybody knew who I was before. Like, people just, when you said my name at Mills, and even to this day, people know the type of work I put out, award-winning campaigns, like great teams, etc. And here it was like, no one knows any of this, and neither do they care. So a lot of it had to be just, personal affirmation of knowing, okay, I was capable of achieving this, and in this season of greater, for me, I call this season of growth and greater, I want to do the same stuff I was doing before, but now at scale. And in order to do that, you have to have influence, which you're not going to build overnight. So a lot of it was me leaning into, okay, the one thing I do know is like, I care for people and I know how to talk to people. So in every call and every interaction, like I'm gonna make sure I know a little more about this person. And I'm now a year in role and I have tremendous relationships with the people on my team, and that helps us get to better work. So I would say, like, knowing that when you are an experienced hire coming in to a new place, you do have to play that game of reproving yourself, but don't let that imposter syndrome kick in, because it will, and it will be hard. So you have to recognize, okay, what am I telling myself? And then remind yourself of your track record. What have I done before? What experiences have I gained? What can I say that is true? What do I know about myself? And that will help you tremendously, because now, I mean, I'm a year in and like making really big decisions on what we're launching going forward, being able to challenge people now. I've always been a disruptor and a challenger, but then being in a new place, it's hard to do that because you want to make a good impression, right? You want to be likable, etc. I would say definitely like build relationships early on wherever you are, and then ensure that you're also mastering your work. Like, I was actively involved in D&I when I was at Mills. Like, I founded a bunch of philanthropic organizations, like did a ton of D&I work because it was something I was so passionate about. After summer of 2020, I was burnt out from a lot of that. And I made a personal decision to take a step back from D&I work specifically at Unilever. That doesn't mean I don't do D&I work outside of work, but I think like when you're struggling with that pivot, fueling your life outside of work is so important. Like, that's when I found my biggest, in a role that I'm in now, super analytical, not as creative as it was before. I had to find my outlets starting a podcast. Like, I had to find my creative outlets elsewhere. I needed to travel more. I needed to like rebuild relationships with my family. Like, fueling yourself outside of work when you're going through a major pivot is also really important. And then also mastering, like, knowing and learning what you got to do. Because at the end of the day, in order to, excel and propel, you have to be really good at what you're doing and confident in that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right. Well, thank you to our panelists. Big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. It's been a great conversation, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the wonderful events that Kate mentioned. And thank you, everyone, for coming.